Long before the digital age fractured our collective memory, there was a time when millions gathered around a glowing television screen, seeking a reflection of their own lives wrapped in the warm embrace of nostalgia. In the late 1980s, a masterpiece emerged that defied the flashy, superficial grandeur of its era. It did not offer caped cruisers or high-stakes espionage. Instead, it offered something far more beautiful and poignant: the truth of ordinary life. This was a narrative about the fragile innocence of youth, the painful friction of a changing world, first loves, family arguments, and the awkward silences at the dinner table that somehow hurt more the older you get. Now, looking back from the vantage point of 2026, that era feels like a distant, glamorous dream, populated by figures who became legends in our living rooms, yet whose real lives behind the camera carried their own hidden weights, triumphs, and sudden, tragic fades to black. At the heart of this timeless chronicle was a family that felt entirely real, anchored by a patriarch whose presence commanded the screen with a heavy, grounded realism. He was a man who carried the pressures of his generation like a second skin, speaking in strict rules because softness felt far too risky in a world shifting beneath his feet. The brilliance of this performance lay in the quiet cracks of the facade, those fleeting moments where pride dissolved into silent worry and anger masked a profound, protective fear. Yet behind this formidable armor stood a woman of subtle, steadying grandeur. While the household weathered the turbulent storms of a changing society, she was the quiet anchor holding the walls together, balancing the invisible weight of parenting, the emotional labor of marriage, and the slow, awakening realization of her own identity. Together, they created a flawless illusion of suburban stability, but the actors bringing them to life were stepping into a whirlwind of fame that would forever define, and sometimes confine, their artistic destinies. Then, there was the boy at the center of the universe, the innocent lens through which an entire generation viewed their own past. A young soul thrust into the blinding spotlight of Hollywood. At a tender age, he carried the emotional weight of a narrative that felt less like a script and more like a shared human ache. He captured the universal agony of wanting life to stay simple while time relentlessly marches forward. But what happens when the cameras finally stop rolling and the child stars, the seasoned veterans, and the forgotten idols of our youth are forced to step out of the golden haze and confront the cold reality of time? As we begin this journey through the shadowed corridors of memory, we uncover the private battles, the unexpected departures from the spotlight, and the bittersweet legacies of a cast that made us weep for a childhood we all lost. The facade was perfect, but behind the scenes, the true story was just beginning to unfold. To step onto a Hollywood soundstage in the late 1980s was to enter a world of profound contradictions, where the glaring neon brightness of the era collided with a sudden, deep-seated longing for the past. When the cameras first began to roll on this ambitious production, few could have predicted how a meticulous recreation of the late 1960s would capture the hearts of millions. The golden years of the series were marked by an intoxicating whirlwind of instant fame, critical adoration, and the intense, unseen pressure of delivering a flawless weekly masterpiece. Behind the bright studio lights and the beautiful, sun-drenched suburban sets lay the true drama of creation, a realm where seasoned character actors and innocent children alike had to summon the ghosts of a bygone era while navigating the complex machinery of sudden global stardom. This was a place where every look had to carry historical weight, and every quiet moment behind the scenes was charged with the high stakes of an industry that demands everything from those it crowns. The foundation of this television miracle rested upon the broad shoulders of an actor who brought the authentic grit of the East Coast to the manicured lawns of California. Born in the vibrant, unyielding streets of Brooklyn, New York, in the spring of 1947, he was already a seasoned 41-year-old craftsman when he was cast as the formidable patriarch of the family. Bringing a deeply grounded realism to a medium often accused of superficiality, he transformed the character into a universal symbol of working-class struggle and unspoken devotion. The path to this defining role had been paved with years of dedication to the stage, and when the spotlight finally found him, he used it to illuminate the hidden vulnerabilities of a strict, silent generation. Behind the scenes, he fought to preserve the raw, unpolished edges of his character, ensuring that the fatherly love portrayed on screen never felt cheap or artificial. By the time the show reached its zenith, his performance had become an indelible cultural imprint, a masterful portrayal of a man fighting private battles that, even today in 2026, at the age of 79, stands as a hauntingly beautiful testament to the complicated men who raised us. Directly across from this stoic force stood a woman of remarkable grace and artistic intelligence, whose journey to the screen began in the cultural heart of Chicago, Illinois, in May of 1951. At 37 years old, she accepted the monumental task of portraying a traditional mother navigating the turbulent tremors of a society in flux. The behind-the-scenes reality of her performance was a masterclass in subtlety and emotional restraint. In an industry that frequently rewarded the loud and the eccentric, she chose the far more difficult path of quiet power, balancing the invisible, exhausting labor of family life with the slow, delicate awakening of her character's independent identity. Her warmth on the set became a legendary sanctuary for the younger actors, serving as the emotional anchor that kept the production steady during long, grueling days under the hot lights. She played her role with a fierce, protective maternal instinct that never dissolved into mere sentimentality, ensuring that her character remained patient until pushed and gentle until strength was demanded, creating a timeless performance that continues to resonate deeply now that she has reached the age of 75. While the physical actors commanded the visual space, the true secret weapon of the narrative operated entirely in the shadows, delivering an auditory spell that elevated the entire production into the realm of pure poetry. Born in Bethesda, Maryland, in August of 1957, this brilliant performer was 31 when he assumed the monumental responsibility of providing the adult voice of the main protagonist. Tucked away in isolated, darkened recording booths far removed from the bustling energy of the main set, he achieved something truly miraculous, infusing every ordinary teenage embarrassment and heartbreak with a profound sense of historical reflection. The hidden drama of this role lay in its absolute solitude. Without the aid of facial expressions or physical gestures, he had to carry the entire emotional weight of the passing of time within the brief, pregnant pauses of his delivery. His voice possessed a magnificent dual quality, offering immediate warmth alongside a haunting, melancholy distance that reminded audiences of the temporary nature of youth, a timeless artistic achievement that still stirs the souls of viewers in 2026 as he celebrates his 68th year. The sudden, blinding glare of fame was perhaps most intense for the young souls who portrayed the next generation, particularly the actor who took on the burden of playing the volatile, tormenting older brother. Born in the sprawling entertainment capital of Los Angeles in April of 1972, he was a worldly 16-year-old when the series launched, entering the production with a sharp understanding of the industry's demands. To play a convincing antagonist within a loving family required a sophisticated artistic maturity, and he deliberately buried flashes of profound insecurity, loneliness, and a desperate need to belong beneath a facade of aggressive bravado. The difficulty of this role extended far beyond the studio walls, as the young actor had to endure the intense, real-world resentment of a public that often struggled to separate the convincing bully on screen from the gentle teenager behind the camera. Navigating these complex behind-the-scenes dynamics while growing up in the public eye, he delivered a painfully honest portrait of flawed adolescence that remains completely unforgettable now that he is 54. Equally challenged by the swift arrival of global recognition was the young man who embodied the ultimate symbol of childhood loyalty and enduring friendship. Born in White Plains, New York, in March of 1976, he was a mere 12 years old when he was cast as the brilliant, wonderfully awkward confidant to the main character. The golden years of the production required him to balance the ordinary demands of middle school with the extraordinary responsibilities of a high-profile television career, all while maintaining an on-screen presence defined by nerdish charm and absolute emotional honesty. Behind the scenes, the young cast formed bonds that mirrored their fictional counterparts, creating a surreal environment where the line between real-life companionship and scripted drama began to beautifully blur. He portrayed the kind of consistent, safe friend everyone wishes they had before the complexities of adulthood intervene. An innocent performance that captures the very essence of youthful camaraderie and feels uniquely poignant today as he reaches the milestone age of 50. Every golden era in Hollywood must eventually face its twilight, a sober moment when the blinding spotlights fade and the heavy curtains of reality come crashing down. For years, the meticulous illusion of a perfect mid-century childhood had captivated the world. But by the dawn of the 1990s, an invisible, undeniable tension began to permeate the studio backlots. The young actors were growing up before the very eyes of millions, and the sweet, uncomplicated innocence that had launched the series into a cultural phenomenon was rapidly dissolving into the complex, messy realities of late adolescence. Behind closed doors, network executives and studio power brokers wrestled with a terrifying dilemma: how to maintain a pristine, idealized fantasy of youth when the passage of time was actively etching itself onto the faces of their stars. The pressure to conform to the relentless demands of the television industry began to clash violently with the natural human desire for growth and autonomy. The protected bubble that had shielded this tight-knit ensemble from the harsher elements of show business was starting to fracture, setting the stage for a series of profound personal departures, radical life alterations, and the inescapable realization that the camera captures everything except the future. Nowhere was this hidden drama more acutely felt than in the lives of the young souls who embodied the ultimate emotional center of the narrative. The young actress who played the iconic girl next door, born in the coastal beauty of La Jolla, California in January of 1975, was thrust into the exhausting machinery of global fame at the fragile age of 13. While the public worshipped her as a flawless symbol of youthful romance, she carried an immense, unspoken burden behind the scenes, channeling deep grief and vulnerability that proved love cannot always guarantee safety. As the series progressed, the ruthless Hollywood apparatus attempted to lock her into a permanent cage of teen idol status, expecting her to remain forever bound to her on-screen identity. Her turning point arrived when she staged a quiet, brilliant rebellion against the industry, walking away from the conventional spotlight to conquer the rigorous world of academia, becoming a best-selling author and mathematician who completely redefined her destiny by 2026 at the age of 51. This desire to escape the crushing gears of the Hollywood machine resonated deeply with the brilliant actor who portrayed her loyal, awkward classmate. Born in White Plains, New York, in March of 1976, he made a calculated, quiet exit that stunned the industry. Realizing that celebrity was an unstable foundation for a meaningful life, he chose to trade volatile television scripts for the concrete certainty of the legal profession, prioritizing privacy over the artificial warmth of fame. Yet, while some were able to gracefully engineer their own departures, the most devastating disruptions to this nostalgic paradise came from forces entirely beyond human control, shattering the illusion of timelessness with a cold, heartbreaking finality. The industry is notorious for its ability to celebrate glamorous highlights, while quietly pulling a veil of silence over the profound human tragedies that occurred just outside the frame. This painful truth was realized in the most agonizing way through the fate of the gentle, luminous actress who had portrayed the beloved English teacher, a rare sanctuary of kindness in a world defined by adolescent chaos. Born in Edmonton, Canada, in April of 1959, her life was cut short in January of 2021 at the tragic age of 61 after a devastating battle with cancer, leaving an empty space in the fabric of the show's legacy. This stark reality struck yet another devastating blow through the loss of the brilliant character actor who portrayed the stern, quietly fair algebra teacher. Born in New Rochelle, New York, in July of 1936, he delivered an on-screen performance that broke the hearts of millions by teaching the protagonist about the sudden departure of the adults we depend on. In a tragic instance where life cruelly imitated art, he succumbed to his own private battle with cancer in January of 2009 at the age of 72. These quiet passings stripped away the remaining layers of suburban fantasy, proving that time is a relentless thief that claims the people who shaped our lives. At the epicenter of this shifting tide stood the boy who had become the very face of an entire generation's collective memories. An actor whose entire childhood was effectively captured, preserved, and commodified by the television network. Born in Chicago in July of 1976, he was a mere 12 years old when he was swept up into the intoxicating, dangerous vortex of primetime stardom. The sheer emotional and psychological toll of carrying a massive, critically acclaimed production on such young shoulders is a weight that few human beings can truly comprehend, forcing him to live out his most sensitive, vulnerable moments under the unyielding scrutiny of a global audience. When the series finally reached its bittersweet conclusion, the true drama of his artistic survival began. The industry that had worshipped his youth was notoriously cold to the transition of child actors into adulthood. Often discarding them once the profitable magic of innocence had faded. To survive, he had to completely reinvent his relationship with the medium, stepping away from the vulnerable glare of the acting spotlight to command the set from behind the camera as a highly successful television director and producer. This profound turning point was mirrored by his on-screen brother, born in Los Angeles in April of 1972, who similarly shifted his energy into producing and working behind the camera to build a quieter second chapter away from the spotlight. By 2026, these men stand as striking reminders that surviving the very fame that makes you immortal requires taking absolute control of the narrative. The true legacy of a magnificent cinematic masterpiece is never contained solely within the arcs of its primary figures. It breathes within the grand, sweeping mosaic of the supporting souls, who populate the periphery of our memories, giving texture and profound depth to the passing of time. To fully comprehend the enduring magic of this suburban chronicle is to look beyond the central romance and examine the exquisite tapestry of the entire neighborhood, where every passing face in the school hallway carried its own unseen weight, its own quiet dreams, and its own inevitable appointment with the future. Among these essential figures was the free-spirited older sister, a vibrant embodiment of the massive cultural tremors that were actively reshaping the Western world. Portrayed by an elegant actress born in the artistic heart of London, England, in January of 1969, she brought a fierce, idealistic conviction to a role that could have easily devolved into a mere caricature of rebellion. Joining the production at 19, she masterfully navigated the widening generational chasm, colliding with traditional authority not out of malice, but from a desperate, soulful necessity to define her own existence. As the narrative matured, her character's journey evolved beautifully into the quiet realities of marriage and motherhood, illustrating the timeless truth that while radical rebellion may be temporary, human growth is absolute. Off-screen, she maintained a fiercely independent creative identity, seamlessly transitioning between acting, intricate voice work, and music, refusing to let the industry confine her to a single gilded cage. By 2026, at the age of 57, her performance stands as a hauntingly beautiful reminder that within every traditional household, there is often one brave soul who dares to change first, forcing everyone else to either fight, follow, or finally find a way to understand. This brilliant depth extended deep into the cold, intimidating institutions of youth, where the formidable adults who governed the daily lives of children were portrayed by a collection of Hollywood's most dependable and nuanced character craftsmen. The terrifying, unyielding nature of systemic authority found its perfect physical manifestation in the stern assistant principal, a figure who could effortlessly paralyze a student with a single, icy glare. Born in the industrial landscape of Flint, Michigan, in May of 1943, this master actor was 45 when he first stepped into the sterile school corridors, playing the role not as a cartoonish villain, but with a grounded, exhausting realism that revealed the profound weariness of a man tasked with holding the line against perpetual chaos. After a long, distinguished career built on impeccable character work, he quietly stepped away from the blinding lights, leaving behind a timeless monument of childhood fear that remains utterly unforgettable now that he has reached the glorious age of 83. Beside him in the faculty lounge sat the legendary deadpan science teacher, whose monotone delivery became a masterclass in classroom comedy and an indelible part of the cultural lexicon. Born in Washington, D.C., in November of 1944, he captured the universal exhaustion of routine, turning the slow drift of student attention and the desperate prayer for the final bell into something profoundly hilarious yet melancholic. His unique public identity eventually stretched far beyond the boundaries of traditional acting into writing and sharp commentary, cementing his status as an icon recognized for the sheer power of his unmistakable persona, celebrating his 81st year in 2026. This academic trifecta was completed by the unforgettable gym coach, a man who transformed aggressive, rough discipline into a tragic comedy of adult insecurity. Born in Philadelphia in October of 1953, he played this wounded authority figure with a magnificent blend of outward bravado and pathetic vulnerability, reminding us that the adults who terrify us are often just hiding their own private humiliations. His expansive later career across genre television and intricate voice work proved that his artistic boundaries extended far beyond a school whistle, standing as a vibrant creative force at the age of 72. As the golden years of childhood began to wane, the narrative introduced new, complex companions who signaled that the protective innocence of the early years was drawing to a permanent close. This emotional transition was perfectly encapsulated by the arrival of the cool, slightly cynical late-season friend, a character who beautifully illustrated the painful reality of old friendships drifting away. Portrayed by a fiercely talented actor born in Los Angeles in December of 1974, he was 18 when he joined the ensemble, bringing an immediate, worldly-weary texture to the screen that acted as a direct bridge into the complexities of adulthood. His effortless performance was a prelude to an explosive, highly acclaimed career across mainstream cinema and prestige television, establishing him as one of the industry's most distinct and credible dramatic forces, a reputation he carries with pride in 2026 at the age of 51. In stark contrast to this laid-back gravity was the quirky, high-energy classmate who used rapid-fire humor as a shield against the terrifying silences of adolescent awkwardness. Born in Chicago in February of 1968, the actor behind this jittery charm delivered small bursts of absolute realism before executing a brilliant transition behind the camera, moving from being a mere participant in a coming-of-age story to actively writing, producing, and directing those stories for subsequent generations. Reaching his 58th year of life, the atmospheric richness of this universe was further solidified by the quiet, earnest faces that populated the background, ensuring that the fictional school felt like a living, breathing community. The intelligent, slightly awkward classmate, who mirrored the quiet focus of the academic crowd, was brought to life by a dedicated performer born in Oceanside, California in February of 1976. By maintaining a deep, lifelong connection with the show's enduring fanbase through conventions and personal appearances, he proved that nostalgia is often built on the gentle, overlooked faces that sat next to us in class, celebrating his 50th year by 2026. This collective memory was woven together with the brief, poignant, romantic detours that taught the main protagonist that the heart must learn to bend before it breaks. There was the sweet, quirky classmate portrayed by a Long Island native born in August of 1977, who brought an awkward charm to a temporary romance, proving that relationships do not need to last forever to hold profound meaning, now a vibrant 49. There was the confident, popular rival born in the Bronx in September of 1972, whose easy existence forced a painful confrontation with internal insecurity, now a versatile veteran of the industry at 53. And there was the poised, highly intelligent student from Ballinger, Texas, born in December of 1970, who played her role with a calm, intimidating confidence that beautifully illustrated how attraction can often be wrapped in the fear of inadequacy. Currently living a peaceful life focused on family at 55, even the great cultural battlegrounds of the era found an intimate home around the family dinner table, most notably through the introduction of the serious, socially conscious boyfriend who brought the political friction of the late 60s directly into the domestic sanctuary. Portrayed with absolute sincerity by an actor born in Flushing, New York, in November of 1966, he elevated the character far beyond a simple counterculture cliché, showing a young man genuinely trying to live his values despite the mocking derision of an older generation. While this performer would later ascend to the absolute pinnacle of global television iconography, his time in this nostalgic mosaic remains a vital, grounded chapter of his artistic legacy, reaching the age of 59 in 2026. When we look back at the monumental mark this entire cast left upon the history of entertainment, we realize that their true greatness lay in